Yeah, I'm afraid to say this is the final review of this bottle of Springbank 10 in my Springbank 10 series. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and I hope you had a very Merry Christmas indeed. This is the last video of the year and is the last video in my series of testing this bottle of Springbank 10 every few months throughout the duration of a year to see much how it changes. And it was the very first video I did in 2024 trying Springbank 10 for the very first time, so it just makes sense, it's poetic justice for the last video of 2024, that is how you say that word, Tom, to be the last video in this series of testing this over the course of a year. Obviously after a year it will change even more, but there is some kind of debate as to when it really is at its best, and well, everyone's pretty confident it's definitely before the year point anyway, or at least so far down the bottle. We are about a third down the bottle now, so I reckon this, especially in these conditions, is about to be as good as it ever really gets. So how has it gone so far? Well, on opening it was very flavourful, I liked it a lot, but maybe a little bit closed off. And then the next couple of tastings it got better and better and better, to a point where it almost felt like it was starting to mellow out a bit and everything was becoming not less complex but much more approachable. Then the summer hit and the heat, well, made it taste pretty damn bad if we're totally honest, and then last time we tested it in the autumn it started to pick up just a bit, but hopefully now it will be back to true form. For those that don't recognise it, here is a quick look at the bottle. This is it, Springbank 10. I got this from Springbank's distillery. Quite a difficult bottle to get if you don't go and visit the place, and even if you do go and visit the distillery, there's no guarantee you get in one either, so you've really got to like this to go and hunt it down. Now, to be honest, I had every intention of making this video a large momentous occasion, but those of you who've been following the channel will know I've been ill for a lot of the last month at least, just not really able to proper taste test anyway. I felt pretty good for the last few weeks. But anyway, I do think I'm just about ready to tell you how I feel about this whiskey and do it some justice. I had intended for this video, as I say, to be a big extravaganza. I was going to go away and stitch together all of my thoughts on the aroma, the palate, the consistency, the mouthfeel, the aftertaste, everything about this, so we could compare them throughout the year. And I'm still going to do that, so you're going to see it, but I don't know what it is beforehand, or well, I wanted to watch it along with you really, but never mind. You can let me know in the comments if you thought it was consistent or whether I'm just rambling on each and every occasion. But anyway, let's get one poured before we ramble anymore. And as usual, great cork pop. In the glass, that looks very, very nice indeed. It's got a properly just almost kind of syrupy golden hue to it. Few orange tinges here and there, but yeah, looks very nice indeed. The cloudiness actually isn't really showing up in the glass so much as it was on the bottle. Not much has changed visually, of course. It's still very much a light gold, almost. It looks like white wine actually under the studio light. Last time I drank this, as I said, I was in Scotland, had no lighting effectively. It was quite a different looking video to my usual stuff. And yeah, the colour on it probably looks a bit darker because I was in a darker environment. Now though, it's proper, like, it's almost blonde coloured, like almost a rich white wine vibe to it, interestingly enough. One day I will pour from a bottle of whiskey and not have a tiny drop dribble down the side of the bottle. But it is not this day. In the glass, of course, nothing really has changed. It's got this light straw, slightly peachy tone to it, but it is what it is. It's uncoloured, it's unfettled, it's just, well, some proper Campbelltown Scotch. In the glass, for those that haven't seen it before, it is a proper non-chill filtered, no colour additive job. Nice light golden straw colour to it. 10 years old Scotch barrels, so they're not, you know, they're not the deepest, the richest. It's never going to be the most colourful there, but it looks very nice indeed. Visually, looks like it has done every other time before. Nice light golden hue, not much more to write home about. In the glass, as it always has been, really light golden straw colour to it. Again, it's not chill filtered, it's not got any colouring added. This is as it looks coming out those barrels. And, well, yeah, exactly as we've expected from all the previous ones. The aromas, though. There's a refinement to this. It's got a warm, fruity heat, cherries, wood, which instantly makes me think of cherry wood, but I'm not sure whether that's just my mind playing tricks, and somewhere between kind of that TCP thing you get in some whiskies and menthol, like this kind of very cleansing, clearing. It's not quite as medicinal as true TCP, but it has got, yeah, a slightly menthol edge to it, and there's a really lightly peated note.
Aromas. Oh, hello. That's different. Got all the hallmarks that it normally has, but it feels sweeter, appley, cherry, nice oaky hit. The peat's coming through, but what's surprising me is the sweetness. Like, it definitely wasn't that sweet before. There's something in there reminding me of shaving foam, which is a bit odd. Something to do with the peat makeup of it. It's a bit, I guess it's that antiseptic vibe that I talk a lot about in whiskey. It's that thing. Yeah. Infinite flavour notes in this, really, and that's just on the aroma.
Interestingly, and it might just be today, it might just be the way I'm feeling, it might just be the circumstances of the day, but that feels fiery today. The peat seems to be coming through big time. When I tried the cask strength, I was kind of amazed just at how much the peat was almost an accessory, a spice, an accompaniment to everything else. But in this today, it's strong, smoky, a little bit dank, earthy, green, vegetal, little bit of salinity, little bit of TCP. It's not quite full on iodine, but there is just a hint of something spicy going on in there as well. But it smells like Springbank, honestly, and the litmus test, of course, every time we try this, does it smell like an old sheep barn covered in wet blankets? I'm pretty sure I change that comment every time it comes up, but it made me laugh so much the first time I saw it. And I think the funk's cleaning up, if I'm honest. It's a little bit, well, it is, I said it was dank. It is definitely a little bit old and mossy as intended, but the intensity of that proper funky, fuggy, damp note starting to get masked up by the smoke, by the antiseptic note, by a few other things. And whilst it's still there, yeah, definitely not as intense as maybe it has been in the past. Now, I should say it's a hell of a lot warmer here today than it has been in any of the previous videos, by a good margin. If 20 degrees, to be honest, is most likely the temperature change in this room anyway, from any of the other videos at least. And I have to say, it's feeling very fruity today. Don't get me wrong, it's still got that big, rich, mildewy, dank, damp, I forget the phrase every time, but wet sheep blankets in an old barn vibe. Like, it's got that thing through and through. But today there's a little bit more citrusy note about it, a little bit more, yeah, general fruitiness, a bit of cherry perhaps. It does smell exactly how I remember, but maybe the levels in it are starting to change a bit. The abrasiveness, the rugged farmyard lifestyle thing that it's got going on, there's no getting away from it, but it's definitely maybe not as intense as it has been previously.
I have to say it every time, it is now the law, smells a bit like some damp wool blankets in an old sheep barn or something to that effect. But whilst that Campbelltown funk is still very much present, it actually smells pretty fantastic. It might have sweetened off a bit. It's reminding me a little bit of honey and lemon kind of, cold and flu remedies, but like the good ones. It's got a bit of a hot toddy vibe about it almost. I'm just going to take this bit of fluff out there. I'm sure you can't see it on camera, but the joys of living with hairy dogs, eh? Anyway, it's smelling beautiful, if I'm honest. I've got high hopes now because last time, it was very ethanol forward. I think the heat was just bringing the booze up and it really wasn't doing it for me, but yeah, it smells pretty great.
It's still funky. It is definitely still funky. Because it's cooled off a bit, I think the iodine note has come back that was there to start with, and I've just realised when I talk like this, it probably sounds really echoey because my voice is bouncing around in the glass, but let's be honest, I've got to say it, damp blankets in an old sheep barn thing, it's there, it's rural, it's delightfully farmyard-esque, and the peat note comes through, but it doesn't burn, it doesn't give you that fear that you can get if you're not a big fan of peated whiskey. And in addition, it delivers intensity in a really measured way, which is why I love this so much. The flavour profile is broad, real broad, but it's not scary. It really comes across as something truly quite unique, which, well, it pretty much is. That Campbelltown funk outside of Campbelltown distilleries doesn't exist, and, well, there aren't many Campbelltown distilleries. But anyway, let's give it a go, shall we? Cheers for a year of Springbank 10 reviews. I'm sure most of you will be relieved to see the back of it. It will probably sneak into another video in the future, and if you look behind my my right ear, is that my right ear? That is my right ear. You can probably see why it's likely to come back again, because we've got its big brother waiting in the wings. But anyway, cheers. I don't know if you can hear the rain on that window behind me, but it is absolutely blowing a gale. But it doesn't matter, because frankly that is pretty delicious. The first thing I'll say is I think I can understand the hype as to why people go after and spend so much on Springbank products. It is distinctly Campbelltown. So it doesn't matter if you just go down to the supermarket and buy the cheapest bottle of Glen Scotia, who are one of the other Campbelltown distilleries bottles, which you can get easily and cheaply, then that will give you an impression of the Campbelltown style, and whether going further into this slightly more niche and kind of, I guess, verging on collectors worthy bottles route is worth it. Because if you just don't like that at all, then I think you're probably not going to like this. It has got that funk, that slight heat, that slight peatiness, this altogether, I guess, jarring of flavours. It's the way that light peaty hit and a little bit of that kind of iodine-y TCP come menthol thing flip round together and become, I don't know, it's almost reminiscent of some kind of old school retro sweet shop sweets that were kind of just a bit, they weren't really sweet and they weren't really bitter, they were just a bit odd. It's got that oddity thing, but the brilliance is in that because it is so unusual. You can sit there and pick through individual flavours. When I tried it before, it felt like there was 1,000 flavours that were just being obstructed by the fact that it's been stuck in this bottle with no oxygen. Like, they were there, but they were so compressed, so deep down, that it was really hard to pick them out. But also, the, I guess, more aggressive, dominant notes, you know, the peat, the funk, all that stuff, actually, that's shown through quite well. So as a result, it felt a little bit rough, a little bit edgy, a little bit not quite sure how it was ever going to balance itself, if I'm honest. I didn't dislike it, but I was like, I'm not sure Springbank's for me. Well, after trying it, I was like, I didn't say it in the video. Afterwards, a few more kind of little testers and some contemplation, I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to really vibe with this. I'm not sure that I am. Today, though, I'm happy to announce that that is not the case. I'll be honest. I was a little bit worried about that aroma. I thought, I've ruined it for myself by having the cask strength and by having the blend, both of which take the core original idea of Springbank and go very different ways with it. One is more, obviously, looked creamy, sweeter. The other one a bit more chill, a bit more approachable. And I thought, actually, well, now this middle ground is kind of not doing either, and maybe I'm going to fall out of love with it a little bit, but nah, that's not the case. The thing that really sticks out for me that's changed this time is on the front of the tongue, the front of the palate. It's got this nice, warming, but also really fresh, outdoorsy, piney note. It's not even resinous pine, it's like proper, I'm not going to go quite as far as to say it tastes like one of them trees you put in your car, but feels like it's being backed up with a little bit of a citrusy hum. And yeah, that is oddly refreshing for, well, let's be honest, one of the world's dankest whiskies. I think my tongue was going to need just a little bit of acclimatization today for some reason. But my instant takeaway is that is becoming oddly smooth to say, well, just how pokey and flavourful it really is. Right then, let's go for another sip just to see. This is proving to be a little bit of an oddity. Typically, people try and keep their whiskey cool because ultimately that stops the flavours running away with themselves and getting a bit too much, and it's generally considered it tastes better at a lower temperature. This is not at a low temperature right now. This is room temperature and then some, right? It's not the best it's ever going to be in theory, but I would think at that temperature the flavours would start to just get a bit too lively, a bit muddled and a bit kind of overwhelming in some senses. And actually, I think the opposite's happened. It seems to be a bit too easy, a bit, well, not quite Springbank enough in some way.
That has changed once again. This now feels like it has more character, it's got more variety of flavours. I think you could pick this apart for days on end and find different things in there. It has sophistication unlike ever before. It really is very, very nice indeed.
Yes. Oh yes. Last time I tried it, I was happy that it seemed to be coming back to form after the drop off in the summer, after it got warm, but it still wasn't wowing me. At this temperature here, it's probably an ambient 18 degrees in this room or something. It's not hot, but it's not warm, it's not near a radiator, it's not had the sun on it, any of that. It is absolutely, that is a gloriously festive dram. I'm starting to feel like I should have been sampling this a few weeks ago for medicinal purposes, because it's really starting to open everything up, reminding me that I can really taste quite strong things, and in some detail. It's sweet, fruity, honeyed, like almost every whiskey is in some way. It's a cop-out term, I know, but then it goes deeper, darker, slightly fiery, but that really saves it for the back. It's just like a peppering, really, of that kind of campfire smoke. It's a lot more on the nose than it is on the palate, and it's slightly meaty, slightly chewy in a way, and I've got to say, for a pretty reserved 46% ABV, it's quite numbing. Like, bits of my mouth trying to taste this have already kind of lost the plot a little bit. It's a journey whiskey, and many of you will know that is my favourite type. It takes you on an elongated experience. I am still a bit sick. I'm struggling to pick up real specifics here, but it starts off nice, soft, sweet, honeyed, reminds me of that Speyside style. Then we emigrate through into what I described a minute ago as meaty, but really it's just this semi-savoury. It's not sweet, it's slightly, it's a bit of the salinity, because although they're not officially coastal, everything in Campbelltown is near the coast, because it's a tiny thin peninsula, and it's got a bit of that about it. And then we move through into something distinctly funky. It is that Campbelltown funk. It's a little bit earthy, boggy, mossy, the sheep barn, it's a tang. It's a really difficult thing to explain. People have done it much better than I ever can, so go and look up Campbelltown funk if you want an explanation. I promise you won't be bombarded with slightly questionable music. And to finish off, it gives you that low, deep, just peppering of campfire smoke that you want to be able to enjoy and say, you know what, I don't mind peated whiskey, it's not terrible, but without completely blasting out your palate. And I don't know if it's just because it's Christmassy, but I feel like today the aftertaste on this is almost like a spiced orange, almost like an orange orange punch, heavily spiced punch, that kind of thing. It's yeah, it really is an absolute trip through time, this whiskey. The flavours are just top to bottom, changing, zipping, dipping. There's not a lot of cohesion between them, but they are in nice separate components, so it's kind of chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and the finale, to let you know that this is something to really savour, enjoy, and, well, it's probably never going to be the same 2 times that you drink it. What I will say about the Springbank, though, it is clearly a level up. I have tried some of Glen Scotia's higher level products, and they are also fantastic. And to be fair, also not that easy to get some of the time, but a bit easier than the Springbank. But I kind of understand it. I kind of get it. It's got a sophisticated charm sat on top of what is otherwise quite an obscure and complex, not necessarily well refined, but yeah, somewhere in the realms of oddity whiskey underneath it. It is fantastic though. It is very, very nice indeed. Because this suddenly makes all of the sense in the world. Yes, those sharp edges are still there, but all the other flavours have come up, and as a result we're just met by this thing that's super complex, rich, sweet, fruity, funky, smoky. It's everything. It is absolutely everything. The medicinal notes really coming through. I don't remember it really being that dominant before, but it's nice, it's sweet. There's a little bit of a salty edge to it, but not quite as much as, say, like an old Pulteney or something like that. Might have got a bit sweeter. Getting proper orange peel towards the back of the palate there. It's really interesting because you get that freshness, as I said, tip of the tongue, piney, slightly citric, proper fresh note. It goes back and you go, okay, getting a bit sweeter. Felt like it was about to tip into vanilla, but never quite made it. Proper sweet, but pithy orange zest. Our takeaway from today's class is, well, don't let your Scotch get too hot, especially if it's a bottle of Springbank 10. I have no doubt that once the temperature cools off and we revisit this again in a few months' time, that it will be perfectly good, if not better, than it was the first time. The smoothness, I have no doubt, has continued. Like, it is unbelievably smooth compared to the first bottle pour. But yeah, I'm not getting the wow factor in terms of layered flavours like I have done in the past, which is an oddity.
It's sweet, it's heathery, it's dank, it's damp. But there's also a new flavour I don't remember picking up on before, and it's got this kind of eucalyptusy cum cacti vegetal thing that it's like fresh vegetation, super fresh vegetation, like you might want it in your body wash vegetation. And that as a contrast to what you get over the mid palate, that second phase where you start to get that real, the funk's still there, but you start to get that peated funk, that real distinct Campbelltown thing where yes, it's smoky, yes, it's a little bit iodine, yes, it's a bit clinical, but there's something about the way that the peat smoked malt blends in with that quasi salinity.
I don't really know how I've edited this together in the end, because I'm filming this before doing any editing at all, but hopefully I've tried to make some sense in explaining how this tastes throughout the year, throughout different points, and you can pick up whether there are any similarities between them or not. I'm hoping there are, and I'm hoping more than anything else that this series has helped you try to understand whether going out of your way to find a bottle of Springbank 10, as hard as it can be, might be something that's worth your time doing, if you like the sound and the descriptors of everything that I've been talking about. I love this bottle, I think it's fantastic. I've tried not to drink any of it with the exception of the videos that I've been doing. I think one or two tasters to other people have happened, but you know, I myself haven't drank any of this, I don't think, other than these reviews, and as a result, well, I'm now quite happy that I can just pick this bottle up whenever I want and enjoy one, because I wanted the definitive break between sampling sessions to really get to grips with it. And yeah, I feel like I have. I feel like I know this bottle very well indeed, and it is one that I would recommend to most people if they live on the adventurous side of whiskey. Now then, as I mentioned, Springbank 15, its bigger brother, is also sat waiting on my whiskey shelf, and we are going to do a year-long taste test with it, but I want to know from you in the comments, do you want this immediately? Do you want the first video of 2025 to be Springbank 15's first ever test, and then work my way through the year as I have this year with the 10? Or do you want a few months off from Springbank content, in which case we'll push it further down into the year? Let me know in the comments and I will make that decision very, very soon. But yeah, that really is all I've got to say about it. Have you tried Springbank 10 during this testing year that I've been doing? Did I help you? Did I deceive you in any way? Are you mad at me, or do you really like it? Let me know again in the comments below. But that really is all I've got to say about it. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic new year, and I will see you in 2025 for more beer and whiskey content. But until then, have an absolutely fantastic time. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you will be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Happy New Year.